The throne room of Emperor Zoroth stretched for nearly a mile in every direction. Pillars of black stone rose toward a ceiling so high that clouds sometimes formed beneath it. Thousands of officials, generals, and nobles stood in perfect rows, their heads bowed as the emperor reviewed the latest conquest reports. Zoroth had ruled the dominion of 13 stars for over 300 years. His species lived for centuries, and he had spent every one of those years expanding his empire. 2,000 worlds now answered to him. 2,000 planets paid tribute, provided soldiers, and fed the endless hunger of his war machine. Today, his advisors had brought him something new. "A primitive species, Your Eternal Majesty," said the chief intelligence officer, projecting images into the air above the throne room floor. "They call their world Earth. It sits in an unremarkable system at the edge of the outer territories." The image showed a small blue planet covered in water and green land. Tiny lights dotted its night side, evidence of basic civilization. "They have only recently developed interstellar communication," the officer continued. "Our listening post detected their signals 40 of their years ago. Radio waves, primitive broadcasting. They do not yet have faster-than-light travel." Zoroth leaned forward on his throne. His golden eyes studied the planet with the cold calculation of a predator examining prey. "Resources?" he asked. "Abundant, Your Majesty. Rich deposits of rare metals, large quantities of water, and the species itself numbers in the billions. They would make excellent laborers for our mining operations." A murmur of approval rippled through the assembled nobles. New conquest meant new wealth, new slaves, and new glory for the Dominion. High Admiral Vareth Kessin stepped forward and knelt before the throne. He was the Emperor's finest military commander, a veteran of over 100 planetary invasions. His chest was covered with medals and honors from campaigns across the galaxy. "Give me the 3rd Imperial Fleet, Your Majesty," Vareth said. "I will bring this Earth under your control within days." "These primitives will not even understand what is happening before their world belongs to you," Zoroth smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "You shall have your fleet, Admiral. 800 warships should be more than sufficient for a species that still uses chemical rockets." Laughter echoed through the throne room. The idea of conquering such a backward world was almost beneath the Dominion's dignity. But resources were resources, and the Emperor never passed up an opportunity to expand his domain. From the shadows near the edge of the room, Fleet Tactician Yenris watched the celebration with growing unease. She was young for her position, barely a century old, but she had earned her rank through careful analysis and attention to details that others missed. And something about this mission troubled her. She waited until the formal ceremony ended, and Admiral Vareth retired to his planning chambers. Then she followed him, requesting a private audience. "Tactician Yenris," Vareth said, not looking up from the star map spread across his table. "I assume you have concerns. You always have concerns." "Admiral, I have been reviewing the intelligence reports on the Earth system," Yenris said carefully. "There are inconsistencies that worry me." Vareth finally looked at her. "Inconsistencies?" "Over the past 40 years, we've sent 17 scout probes to that sector. All 17 have gone silent. No distress signals. No final transmissions. They simply stopped communicating." The Admiral shrugged. "Space is dangerous. Probes fail. Asteroids strike them. Equipment malfunctions. 17 times in the same system?" Yenris shook her head. "Admiral, the probability of that occurring naturally is almost zero. Something is destroying our probes. Then these primitives have some basic defensive capability. Perhaps they shoot down objects that enter their space." Vareth waved his hand dismissively. "It does not matter. Scout probes are tiny things. They cannot stand against a single warship, let alone 800. Yenris hesitated. She knew she was pushing the limits of what a tactician could say to a high admiral. "Sir, what if they are not as primitive as we believe? What if the signals we detected were meant to be detected? What if they wanted us to think they were weak?" Vorath stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a deep rumbling sound that filled the chamber. "You have an active imagination, tactician. These creatures have been broadcasting their entertainment programs into space for decades. We have watched their silly dramas and listened to their primitive music. We know exactly what they are capable of." He turned back to his maps. "They're children playing with toys. And children do not defeat the Dominion." Yenris bowed and left the chamber, but the unease in her chest did not fade. 3 days later, the Third Imperial fleet departed from the throne world. 800 warships arranged in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of the Imperial sun. Crowds gathered on observation platforms to watch them go, cheering and waving banners of conquest. Admiral Vorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Vengeance, watching the stars blur as the fleet entered hyperspace. In 7 days, they would arrive at Earth. In 8 days, they would have a new world under Dominion control. He had done this many times before. The pattern was always the same: arrive with overwhelming force, broadcast demands for surrender, crush any resistance, install a governor, move on to the next target. Earth would be no different. In her quarters, aboard a support vessel, Yenris sat alone in the darkness, reviewing data that no one else seemed interested in examining. She had pulled records from other galactic powers, old files that required special clearance to access. What she found made her blood run cold. The Dominion was not the first empire to notice Earth. 3 other major powers had sent expeditions to that system over the past century: the Varix Hegemony, the Collective of Neth, the Solarian Trade Federation. All 3 expeditions had vanished without a trace. The other powers had classified the Earth system as a silent zone, a region of space to be avoided without explanation. They had buried the information so deeply that even their own people did not know about it. Yenris stared at the data, her hands trembling. Someone had been erasing fleets from existence for 100 years, and the Third Imperial fleet was flying directly toward them. She tried to request an audience with Admiral Vorath, but her messages went unanswered. The Admiral was busy planning his victory celebration. In 7 days, they would reach Earth. Yenris wondered if any of them would survive long enough to regret it. The Third Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace near the orbit of Neptune, the 8th planet from Earth's sun. 800 warships spread across thousands of miles of empty space, their weapons armed and their shields raised. Admiral Vorath stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vengeance, watching the distant blue dot that was his target. Earth was still billions of miles away, barely visible against the blackness of space. "Begin standard conquest protocols," he ordered. "Broadcast the surrender demand on all frequencies." His communications officer activated the transmission array. The message went out at faster than light speeds, reaching Earth in seconds rather than hours. "Attention, inhabitants of the planet Earth. This is High Admiral Vorath, Kessin of the Dominion of 13 Stars. Your world is now claimed by Emperor Zolrath the Eternal. You will surrender all military assets and governmental control immediately. Resistance will result in the destruction of your population centers. You have 1 of your hours to respond." Vorath smiled as the message transmitted. He had delivered this speech many times. The response was always the same: panic, confusion, desperate attempts at negotiation, and finally, surrender. He settled into his command chair to wait. On Earth, the message arrived at the North American Aerospace Defense Center, buried deep inside a mountain in Colorado. Commander Laura Mitchell was the first to hear it. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had served in the military for 30 years, but for the last decade, her job had been something that officially did not exist. "Confirmation?" she asked quietly. "Confirmed, Commander," said Sergeant Kevin Park, her communications officer. "Alien transmission. Fleet signature matches the profile we've been tracking since they entered sensor range 3 days ago. 800 vessels. Weapons hot." Mitchell nodded slowly. "Activate protocol blackout. Bring all systems to ready status." Park typed commands into his console. Across the planet, hidden facilities received the signal. Satellites that appeared dead suddenly came to life. Bases buried beneath the ocean floor powered up. Installations on the moon and scattered through the asteroid belt began their activation sequences. "Protocol blackout active," Park reported. "All defense networks standing by." Mitchell picked up a secure phone and dialed a number that connected to a small laboratory in Nevada. "Nina," she said when the call connected. "They're here." Dr. Nina Vance had been waiting for this call for 20 years. She was the architect of Earth's secret, the woman who had turned humanity from a primitive species into something the galaxy had never seen before. "How many ships?" Vance asked. 800. There was a pause. "The grid can handle it. We tested for up to 2,000. I know." Mitchell looked at the screens, showing the alien fleet holding position near Neptune. "But this is the first real engagement. Are you certain it will work?" "Lavra, I've been certain since we recovered that first probe in 1987. Their technology is impressive, but it has limits. Ours does not." Vance's voice was steady. "Give the order when you're ready. The grid will do the rest." Mitchell ended the call and turned to face her team. These men and women had trained for years for a moment that most people on Earth did not know was coming. They had kept a secret, maintained the systems, and waited. "No response to the aliens," Mitchell ordered. "Let them come to us." In the command center, a young officer named Captain Danny Reyes stood near the tactical display. He commanded Earth's fighter squadrons, pilots who flew spacecraft that the public did not know existed. "Commander, my pilots are ready," Reyes said. "Give us permission to launch and we can." "Stand down, Captain." Mitchell did not look at him. "Your squadrons are our backup. The automated grid will handle the primary engagement." Reyes wanted to argue. His pilots had trained for years. They wanted to defend their world personally, to face the enemy in combat. But he recognized the tone in Mitchell's voice. This was not a discussion. "Understood, Commander," he said quietly. Near Neptune, Admiral Vorath checked the time. The human's hour was almost finished, and no response had come. "Curious," he muttered. "They have not even attempted to negotiate." "Perhaps they do not believe we are real," suggested his second-in-command. "Primitive species often deny evidence that challenges their understanding of the universe." Vorath nodded. "Then we will make them believe." All ships advance to attack position. Formation conquest standard. We will establish orbit around their moon and begin precision strikes against their military installations. The fleet moved forward, 800 warships accelerating toward the inner solar system. They passed the orbits of Neptune, then Uranus, then Saturn. Sensors showed no resistance, no ships rising to meet them, no weapons platforms activating. "They have nothing," the second-in-command said with contempt. "They cannot even mount a token defense." Vorath felt a small flicker of disappointment. He had hoped for at least some challenge. Conquering a world that could not fight back brought little glory. The fleet crossed the orbit of Jupiter. Then the asteroid belt? Still nothing. And then, as the first ships approached the orbit of Mars, the sensors began to scream. "Admiral," the tactical officer shouted. "Massive energy readings. Thousands of sources. They're everywhere." Vorath jumped to his feet. "Where? Show me?" The tactical display lit up with red markers. Energy signatures appeared across the entire solar system. Hidden satellites, asteroid installations, lunar bases, orbital platforms that had been invisible moments before. They had been cloaked. All of them, waiting in silence. How is this possible? Vorath whispered. They are primitives. They broadcast entertainment signals. They barely have space travel. The answer came to him in a flash of horrible understanding. They wanted us to think that, on Earth, Commander Mitchell watched the same sensor data. The alien fleet had stopped advancing, frozen in confusion as they realized the truth. The grid has target lock on all vessels, Park reported. Awaiting your order, Commander. Mitchell stared at the screen for a long moment. 800 ships. Millions of alien soldiers. They had come to enslave her world, to kill her people, to take everything humanity had built. She thought about the decades of secret preparation. The sacrifices made by scientists, soldiers, and leaders who knew they might never see this moment. The generations of humans who had worked to protect the world that did not know it needed protecting. Fire, she said, dot across the solar system. 10,000 hidden weapons platforms activated simultaneously, and the third Imperial fleet began to disappear. Admiral Vorath watched in frozen horror as the ships around him began to vanish. There was no explosion, no flash of weapons fire, no debris. The vessels simply ceased to exist. One moment a warship was there, bristling with weapons and carrying thousands of soldiers. The next moment, empty space. Report, he screamed. What is happening? His tactical officer's hands shook as he tried to make sense of the data. Unknown weapon signature, Admiral. Ships are being displaced, teleported. I cannot determine the destination. Teleported where? The officer looked up with terror in his eyes. The energy readings suggest the core of the local star. They are being sent directly into the sun. Vorath felt his blood turn to ice. The humans were not destroying his fleet. They were erasing it, moving entire warships across millions of miles of space in an instant and dropping them into a burning nuclear furnace. It was impossible. No species in the known galaxy had teleportation technology that could move objects larger than a small probe. The energy requirements alone would drain a planet, but the humans were doing it, effortlessly, silently, ship after ship vanishing into nothing. All vessels, emergency retreat. Vorath commanded. Maximum speed. Return to hyperspace immediately. The fleet tried to obey. Engines flared as 800 warships attempted to turn and run. But the human defense grid was faster. The weapons fired continuously, each pulse selecting a new target and removing it from existence. Destroyers vanished. Cruisers disappeared. The great battleships of the Dominion, vessels that had conquered dozens of worlds, blinked out of reality without even a scream from their crews. On Earth, Dr. Nina Vance monitored the engagement from her laboratory. Screens showed the quantum displacement field operating exactly as designed, each pulse creating a temporary wormhole that deposited its target inside the sun's fusion layer. She felt no joy, only grim satisfaction. 40 years, she murmured to herself. 40 years of pretending to be primitive. 40 years of hiding. And they still walked into the trap. It started with a crashed alien probe in 1987, a small device, barely the size of a car, that had fallen into the Nevada desert. The government had recovered it and brought it to scientists for study. What they found changed everything. The probe contained technology that was centuries ahead of anything on Earth, faster than light communication, advanced materials, and something that no human scientist had thought possible, a working prototype of quantum displacement. Vance had been a young researcher then, barely out of graduate school. She had devoted her entire life to understanding and improving that technology. By 2010, humanity had built its first displacement weapon. By 2020, they had thousands, and they had told no one. The decision had been controversial. Some leaders wanted to announce humanity's capabilities to take their place among the stars as equals. But others argued for caution. If the galaxy contained species willing to send probes to spy on Earth, it likely contained species willing to conquer it. Better to appear weak. Better to let potential enemies underestimate them. Better to build defenses in secret and wait. Now the waiting was over. In the command center, Commander Mitchell watched the enemy fleet shrink with every passing second. 700 ships. 500. 300. They're trying to scatter, Park reported. Breaking formation in all directions. It won't help them, Mitchell said quietly. The grid has full coverage out to the orbit of Jupiter. Nothing gets through. Captain Reyes stood beside her, watching the slaughter with mixed emotions. Part of him was relieved that his pilots did not have to fight. Part of him was disturbed by the efficiency of the killing. They never had a chance, he said. They flew billions of miles to conquer us, and they never had a chance. No, Mitchell agreed. They didn't. On the bridge of the Eternal Vengeance, Admiral Vorath realized that escape was impossible. The human weapons were tracking every ship individually, picking them off one by one with mechanical precision. Around him, officers ran and shouted and prayed to gods that could not hear them. The lights flickered as power systems struggled under the stress of emergency maneuvers that accomplished nothing. Admiral, his communications officer said with a trembling voice, "We could surrender." Perhaps they would. Surrender to what? Vorath snapped. They are not demanding surrender. They are not asking for anything. They are simply erasing us. He understood now. The humans had learned the same lesson that the Dominion taught every species it conquered. When you have overwhelming power, you do not negotiate. You do not accept surrender. You simply destroy anything that threatens you. Humanity had watched the galaxy for 40 years. They had seen how empires behaved, and they had decided that the only way to survive was to become more dangerous than anything else in the universe. Vorath felt a strange respect mixed with his terror. These primitives had fooled everyone. They had played the role of helpless children while building weapons that could erase armadas. They had listened to the galaxy's communications, learned its secrets, and prepared for this exact moment. Scout Commander Drennick, Vorath said suddenly. Where is Drennick? His second-in-command checked the roster. Scout Ship Whisper, sir. Still operational. For now, Vorath made his decision in an instant. Open a channel to Drennick. Priority 1. The connection established, showing a young officer with fear painted across his face. Drennick, listen carefully, Vorath said. I am transmitting all tactical data from this engagement to your vessel. You will take a scout pod and escape this system immediately. Get this information to the Emperor. Warn him about what the humans can do. Admiral, I cannot abandon. That is an order. Vorath's voice cracked with desperation. Someone must survive. Someone must tell the Dominion what happened here. Go now, before they target your ship. On the screens, another 50 warships vanished in the time it took to give the order. Drennick nodded, tears streaming down his face. I understand, Admiral. I will tell them. Tell them not to return, Vorath said. Tell them Earth is death. Tell them. The connection cut off as the Eternal Vengeance entered the targeting queue. Admiral Vorath closed his eyes. He thought of the hundreds of worlds he had conquered, the millions of beings he had killed or enslaved in the Emperor's name. He had always believed that power meant safety, that the strong survived and the weak perished. Now he was the weak one. and the humans were showing him no more mercy than he had shown others. The quantum displacement field activated around the flagship. Reality twisted. And then there was only light and heat, and nothing. 93 seconds after the first shot fired, the Third Imperial Fleet ceased to exist. 800 warships, 2 million soldiers, countless tons of advanced technology gone in a tiny scout pod racing away from the battlefield. Commander Drennick clutched the data storage device containing Admiral Voreth's final recording. He pushed his engines to their maximum, desperate to reach hyperspace before the humans noticed him. Behind him, the solar system fell silent once again. The defense grid powered down. The hidden platforms returned to their dormant state. Earth resumed its peaceful appearance. A small blue world, broadcasting primitive entertainment signals into the void. Waiting for the next fleet to underestimate it. The scout pod carrying Commander Drennick tumbled out of hyperspace near the throne world of the Dominion. Its hull was scarred from the desperate escape, its engines barely functioning after being pushed beyond their limits for 7 straight days. Drennick had not slept. He had barely eaten. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the ships vanishing. He heard the screams on the communication channels. He felt the terrible silence that followed. 2 million of his comrades gone in less than 2 minutes. Unidentified vessel, you are entering restricted space, came the challenge from the orbital defense network. Identify yourself immediately or you will be destroyed. This is Commander Drennick of the Third Imperial Fleet, he transmitted, his voice hoarse from days of crying and praying. I carry an urgent message for Emperor Zoreth. Priority code Absolute Crimson. There was a long pause. Absolute Crimson was the highest emergency designation in the Dominion military. It had not been used in over a century. Commander Drennick, you are cleared for immediate landing at the Imperial Palace. An escort is being dispatched. Within hours, Drennick stood in the great throne room where Admiral Voreth had received his orders just weeks before. The same pillars rose toward the impossibly high ceiling. The same crowds of nobles and officials filled the chamber. But now they stared at him with confusion and growing fear. Emperor Zoreth sat on his throne, his golden eyes fixed on the lone survivor of his greatest fleet. Where is Admiral Voreth? The Emperor demanded. Where is my third fleet? Drennick fell to his knees. His body shook as the memories overwhelmed him. Destroyed, Your Majesty. All of it. Every ship. Every soldier. I am the only one who escaped. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the crowd. The Third Fleet had been the pride of the Dominion, the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. Impossible? Zoreth said coldly. You lie. I have recordings, Your Majesty. Drennick held up the data device with trembling hands. Admiral Voreth's final transmission. He ordered me to bring it to you. To warn you. The Emperor gestured, and guards took the device to the throne room's projection systems. Moments later, the recording began to play. Admiral Voreth's face appeared in the air above the assembled crowd. Behind him, chaos reigned on the bridge of the Eternal Vengeance. Alarms screamed. Officers ran in panic. Through the viewports, ships could be seen vanishing from existence. My Emperor, Voreth said, his voice calm despite the horror surrounding him. If you are seeing this, then I have failed. The Third Fleet has been destroyed. The humans of Earth possess weapons beyond anything we imagined. They can teleport our vessels directly into their sun. They have erased 800 warships in less than 2 minutes. The recording showed more ships disappearing. Voreth continued speaking. His words rushed as he sensed his time running out. They were waiting for us. Their primitive appearance was a deception. They wanted us to attack. They have been preparing for this moment for decades, perhaps longer. Do not send another fleet. Do not attempt to conquer Earth. They are not prey. They are predators, who have been hiding their teeth. The image shook as the flagship was hit by something. Voreth steadied himself. I have served the Dominion for 300 years. I have conquered over 100 worlds. And I am telling you now, my Emperor Earth cannot be taken by force. If you try, you will lose everything. The recording ended with Voreth's face frozen in final warning. Silence filled the throne room. 2,000 officials stood in shock, unable to process what they had witnessed. Emperor Zoreth's face twisted with rage. He slammed his fist against his throne's armrest with enough force to crack the stone. Unacceptable, he roared. A primitive species cannot defeat the Dominion. I will send the entire armada, every ship we possess. I will burn their planet to ash and scatter the ashes across the void. Your Majesty. The voice came from the shadows near the edge of the room. Fleet Tactician Yenneris stepped forward, her expression grave. I must respectfully advise against that course of action. You dare question me? Zoreth's eyes blazed. After this humiliation, you suggest we do nothing? I suggest we consider the evidence. Yenneris bowed low but continued speaking. Your Majesty, I warned Admiral Voreth about the Earth system before he departed. Our probes had been vanishing there for decades. I have since conducted additional research. She produced a data tablet and activated a projection showing star maps with marked regions. Earth has been designated a silent zone by the Varex hegemony, the Collective of Neth, and the Silurian Trade Federation. All three powers lost ships in that system. All three buried the information rather than admit defeat. The revelation sent fresh waves of shock through the crowd. The humans have been eliminating alien vessels for over a century. Yenneris continued. They have watched our communications. They know about the Dominion. They know about every major power in the galaxy. And they have been building defenses specifically designed to destroy us. Zoreth gripped his throne, his anger wrestling with the cold logic of her words. If they could erase 800 ships in 90 seconds, Yenneris said carefully, what could they do to 5,000? 10,000? They showed us their capability. They let one survivor escape to deliver the message. This was not just a battle. It was a demonstration. Before the Emperor could respond, a new alarm echoed through the throne room. A communications officer rushed forward, his face pale. Your Majesty, we are receiving a transmission. From Earth. The air above the throne room floor shimmered, and a new image appeared. A human woman with gray hair and calm eyes looked out at the assembled Dominion leadership. Commander Lavra Mitchell had never addressed an alien audience before, but her voice did not waver. Emperor Zoreth, she said, I am Commander Lavra Mitchell of Earth. You sent a fleet to conquer my world. That fleet no longer exists. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The humans had somehow hacked their way into the most secure communication network in the Dominion. We did not start this conflict, Mitchell continued. Your admiral gave us no choice when he demanded our surrender and threatened to destroy our cities. We defended ourselves. Nothing more. She paused, letting the words sink in. But I want to be very clear about what happens next. You can send another fleet. You can send 100 fleets. The result will be the same. We have spent 40 years preparing for this moment. We have capabilities you cannot imagine, and we will use every one of them to protect our world. Mitchell's expression hardened. Your next move determines whether the Dominion survives. Choose wisely. The transmission ended, leaving the throne room in stunned silence. Emperor Zoreth stared at the space where the human's image had been. For the first time in 300 years of rule, he did not know what to do. The NRIS watched him carefully. The fate of the Dominion rested on what he decided in the next few moments. War meant annihilation. Everyone in the room understood that now. The question was whether the Emperor could accept it. 3 days after Commander Mitchell's transmission, the throne room of Emperor Zoreth remained in chaos. Advisors argued. Generals demanded revenge. Nobles whispered about weakness and cowardice, but Yenris noticed something in the Emperor's eyes that she had never seen before. Doubt. The humans cannot have unlimited power, a senior general insisted during the endless debates. Every weapon has limits. Every defense can be broken. We simply need to find their weakness. And how many fleets will we sacrifice searching for it? Yenris responded. They destroyed 800 ships without losing a single platform. We do not even know how many weapons they have. Then we test them, the general said. Send smaller forces. Probe their defenses. Learn their patterns. They have been watching us for decades. They know our tactics better than we know theirs. Yenris shook her head. Every probe we send gives them information while costing us ships. This is not a war we can win through attrition. Emperor Zoreth listened in silence. His rage had cooled over the past days, replaced by something more dangerous: calculation. Leave me, he finally commanded. All of you except Yenris. The throne room emptied. When the massive doors closed, leaving only the Emperor and his tactician, Zoreth spoke in a voice stripped of Imperial authority. Tell me the truth. Can we defeat them? Yenris hesitated. Speaking honestly to an emperor could mean death. But lying would mean something worse. No, Your Majesty. Not with our current understanding of their capabilities. They have technology we cannot match. They have been preparing for this war longer than we knew they existed. And they have shown they are willing to use everything they have. Zoreth nodded slowly. In 300 years, I have never retreated from a challenge. I have never allowed a species to defy the Dominion and survive. Earth is not defying the Dominion, Yenris said carefully. They are asking to be left alone. The commander's message was not a declaration of war. It was a warning, a boundary. And if we respect that boundary, we look weak. Every conquered world will wonder if they can resist us too. Your Majesty, you conquered 2,000 worlds because none of them could challenge you. Earth can. That changes the calculation, not your strength. Yenris stepped closer to the throne. The other galactic powers already knew about Earth's capabilities. They chose silence over confrontation. They buried their defeats rather than admit them. You can do the same, or you can do something they never considered. And what is that? Make peace. Real peace. Not through strength, but through recognition. Earth has proven itself. Treat them as equals, and you transform a potential enemy into a potential ally. Zoreth stared at her for a long moment. Then, for the first time in centuries, the Emperor of the Dominion laughed. It was not a happy sound. You are suggesting I negotiate with a species that humiliated us. I am suggesting you survive. Yenris met his gaze without flinching. Your father built this empire. You expanded it. But empires that cannot adapt do not endure. The humans taught us something in 93 seconds that we should have learned long ago. There is always something stronger. On Earth. Commander Mitchell stood in her command center, reviewing intelligence reports. The Dominion had gone quiet. No more threatening transmissions. No fleets moving toward human space. They're scared, Captain Rhea said, studying the same data. We scared them. We showed them reality, Mitchell replied. Fear is just how they're processing it. Dr. Vance arrived from her laboratory, looking exhausted but satisfied. The grid performed perfectly. 0 malfunctions across 10,000 platforms. Any response from the other powers? Mitchell asked. The usual. Silence. Denial. Vance pulled up intercepts of alien communications. The Varric's hegemony is pretending the Dominion fleet was lost to a spatial anomaly. The collective of Neth has increased patrols near our sector, but is not approaching. They're all afraid, Park observed. Every major power in the galaxy is afraid of us. Mitchell did not smile. Fear is not the same as respect, and it can turn into aggression if they believe they have no other choice. Reyes looked at her. So, what do we do? Hide again? Keep pretending to be primitive? No, that option ended when we destroyed the fleet. Mitchell turned to face her team. We have to decide what kind of presence we want in the galaxy. Conquerors? Isolationists? Something else? It was Sergeant Park who spoke the uncomfortable truth. Commander, I've been running the numbers. The defense grid performed at 12% capacity during the engagement. If the Dominion knew that, they would realize we were bluffing about being able to finish them. The room fell silent. We defeated one fleet, Park continued. If they sent 10 fleets simultaneously from different directions, we could not stop them all. We won the battle through surprise and superior technology. We would lose a war of attrition. Mitchell nodded slowly. She had known this, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. Then we need to make sure it never becomes a war of attrition. We need them to believe peace is their only option. A week later, a message arrived from the Dominion. Emperor Zorath was sending an ambassador to a neutral space station for negotiations. No fleet, no weapons. Just a single diplomatic vessel. It was unprecedented. The Dominion did not negotiate. They conquered or they ignored. But Earth had created a new category, a species that could not be conquered and could not be ignored. The NRIS was chosen as the ambassador. She traveled alone except for a small staff, arriving at the station to find Commander Mitchell waiting for her. The two women studied each other across a conference table. Yenris saw a predator wearing the skin of a bureaucrat. Mitchell saw an intelligence hidden behind the mask of a servant. Your emperor chose well, Mitchell said, sending you instead of a warrior. Warriors would have demanded concessions you would not give. Yenris settled into a chair. I am here to understand, and to ask a question that has bothered me since I first studied your world. Ask. You could have conquered us. Your technology is superior. Your weapons can reach across the galaxy. Why did you only defend? Why did you not attack? Mitchell considered the question carefully. We learned something from our own history. Power that conquers always creates enemies. Power that defends creates space for something else. She leaned forward. We do not want an empire. We do not want slaves or tribute or glory. We want to exist without being threatened. If the galaxy can give us that, we have no reason to fight. The Dominion has conquered 2,000 worlds. We exist because we take what we want. And how long can that last? Mitchell asked. You sent your best fleet against us, and it vanished. You have 2,000 worlds of conquered species who dream of doing the same thing to you. How many more defeats before your empire fractures? Yenris had no answer because she had asked herself the same question many times. Earth offers you something different, Mitchell continued. Not alliance, not submission, just boundaries. You stay out of our space. We stay out of yours. Your conquered worlds remain your problem. Our development remains ours. And if we try to attack again, then we finish what we started. But that benefits no one. Mitchell's voice softened slightly. I did not enjoy destroying your fleet. 2 million soldiers died because your emperor could not imagine that a primitive species might be dangerous. I would prefer that never happens again. Yenris studied the human for a long moment. She saw no deception, no hidden agenda. Just a leader who wanted to protect her world and was willing to destroy anyone who threatened it. I will recommend the Emperor accept your terms, Yenris said finally. I cannot promise he will listen. I know. Mitchell stood and extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. But you listened. That is a beginning. Yenris took the hand. It felt warm and fragile, nothing like the cold power that had erased an armada. What do humans truly want? She asked. In the end, what do you hope to achieve? Mitchell smiled for the first time since the negotiations began. Just to be left alone. But we learned long ago that peace must be earned through strength. We earned it. Now we hope to keep it. The negotiations concluded. Yenris returned to the Dominion with terms that would preserve both species. And across the galaxy, other powers watched with amazement as the mightiest empire in known space made peace with a species they had never heard of. Earth was no longer hidden. It was no longer primitive. It was something entirely new, a power that wanted nothing except to be left alone. Backed by the capability to enforce that wish against anyone who disagreed. The humans had entered galactic politics not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals. And every empire that had ever dreamed of conquest looked at the silent blue world and wondered what other secrets it might be hiding. Some questions, they decided, were better left unanswered.